Como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, nos comunicamos por Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra casa. A veces nosotros vamos a Wellits y puede ser en el parque. Gaby llega, hacemos un resumen de cómo ha ido nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro. Vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo. A veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras, y jugamos un ratito y conversamos.
A mí personalmente también me ayudó mucho a obtener mi licencia a conducir, que era un objetivo que teníamos en cuanto a la familia,
sí,
para poder estar tranquilos, así que encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
El objetivo del programa es que las familias estén bien, y que las familias estén bien significa niños felices, niños sanos, y eso en un futuro es adultos sanos y un mundo mejor. Entonces está bueno.
She has made me feel like I'm important and I can go at my own pace, and that's all you need sometimes when you're feeling like you got nobody.
It was helpful to have somebody there kind of holding my hand and guiding me and letting me know this is kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know. That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy... como que el ambiente era muy familiar. Entonces Yo me sentí muy cómoda.
Felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit MendoReady.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, MendoReady.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit MendoReady.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
When I first realized that I was gonna be a parent, I was super scared. After 2 or 3 weeks of meeting in the home visiting program, I was totally comfortable with the fact that I was gonna have a baby. Yes, I was still scared, but at the same time, I felt like I had some sense of strength behind me.
If I didn't have those resources that Jeanette provided me, I think it would be harder now.
I got into the program and I realized, like, oh, this is nice. And now look at me, I work at a family resource center with parents and families, all this stuff.
I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to meet my home visitor, because without her, I think that I would be 10 steps behind from where I'm at right now.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía. Como cuidarla, como
the June 3rd, 2024 LAFCO meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Present.
Commissioner Horsley. Commissioner McGordy. Commissioner Roden.
Here.
Commissioner Kristen. Commissioner Crane. Commissioner Crane.
I'm observing, but since both city members are present, I'll be signing off.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hashik. And Chair Mulhern.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2 is public expression. The Commission welcomes participation in the LAFCO meeting. Any person may address the Commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of LAFCO which is not on the agenda. There is a 3-minute limit and no action will be taken at this meeting. If there are any members of the public on Zoom that wish to speak, you can use the raise hand feature or press *9 if you're on your telephone. We have no public members in the audience this morning. Are there any members on Zoom that wish to speak on items that are not on the agenda? I'm not seeing any hands raised. So with that, I'm going to move on to there's no items for other business, item number 3. So we'll move on to the consent calendar, item number 4. That would be for A, the meeting summary, for B, the claims and financial reports from May, for C, AB 3277, and for D, letter of support for SB 1209. Are there members of the commission that have questions, comments, or concerns on the consent calendar? Commissioner Horsley.
Just on 4D, I totally understand why we would want indemnification. I guess I would ask Marcia, just real quickly, if there is something that a LAFCO does that really harms an agency and there's good cause for LAFCO being in the wrong, what avenues do the agencies have?
So, I guess in order, I'm just clear on your question. When you say when LAFCO does something to harm an agency, what are you referring to?
Well, we're talking about supporting SB 1209, which would provide indemnification with an applicant when they apply. And I'm just thinking, if there's something, and I'm not referring to this LAFCO by any means, but if there is some LAFCO somewhere that is requiring or is not following the rules or law, if an agency wants to try to reverse that decision, or I don't know if they need to sue or whatever, can they do that even though there'd be an indemnification agreement?
Okay, so I'm going to take this in 2 parts. I think what you're asking is, does another agency have legal recourse against a LAFCO? And this is it sounds like a pretty broad range of possible scenarios. But of course, there are legal remedies between agencies, just like there are between private citizens. An indemnification agreement simply puts the LAFCO in a position where if the applicant's approval is challenged in court, then the applicant pays for the legal defense, not just for the applicant as the real party in interest, but also for the LAFCO. It's a very standard arrangement with counties and cities, and pretty much every other agency that I work with, and the LAFCOs, of course, for many, many years, all of them that I worked with had indemnification agreements until we had that contrary court decision that said that there wasn't a basis for it, which is what 1209 is seeking to remedy.
Okay,
I don't know.
Did you have something to follow up, Marcia?
Well, I don't know if that answered the question.
Yes, it did, totally.
Okay, yeah. Perfect.
I'm not seeing any other pins up with questions on the consent calendar, so I would just be looking for a motion.
Move the recommended action.
I will second.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on the consent calendar? There's no public in the room here. If you're on Zoom and wish to comment on consent, please use the raise hand feature or press star 9 on your phone. Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner McGordy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes. Excuse me, yes.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
And Chair Mulhern?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We are on to our public hearing items. We have 2 public hearings today. We'll start with item 5A, a public hearing regarding Pacific Reefs Water District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study. E.O. Hinman, are you taking this one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I do have a brief PowerPoint to go through for this item. So this is the public hearing for Pacific Reefs Water District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update. We did have a public workshop on this item in May. This is the time for consideration of the document for formal adoption. The Pacific Reefs Water District was initially formed on June 5th of 1967. The district boundary is the same as the Pacific Reef subdivision boundary, which includes a total of 24 parcels. There are approximately 34 customers served by the district, and it is a single service provider providing water services. So this public hearing is to consider the public testimony and proposed adoption of the Pacific Reefs Water District MSR and Sphere of Influence Update. The item starts on page 19 of your agenda packet. There are a list of revisions made since the May workshop that are in the staff report on page 18. Sorry about that, page 20. And the MSR determinations are on page 54, and the Sphere of Influence determinations are on page 59. The proposed sphere of influence for the Pacific Reefs Water District is to affirm the coterminous sphere, which means it is the same as the jurisdictional boundary, finding that there are adequate water services for the current service area. The district does have no outside agency areas that have been identified for services within the planning horizon of this document. There was a 21-day public notice that was properly published, posted, and distributed on May 13th. Proof of publications are in your agenda packet. We have received no public comments to date, and MSR and Sphere of Influence Update are exempt from CEQA, and the notice of exemption is included on page 88 of your agenda packet.
Commissioner McGordy?
So the exemption from CEQA, is that strictly because of the fact that nothing has changed in what your MSR and SOI?
That's correct. Municipal service reviews are exempt from CEQA because they are planning studies. The sphere of influence in this case is recommended for exemption because there are no changes to the existing condition for the existing sphere of influence.
So if there were planning changes, then a CEQA would probably be required?
And we would have to look more closely at CEQA to see if there would be potential impact.
Okay, thank you.
So the recommendations today are to find the Pacific Reefs Water District MSR categorically exempt from CEQA, and find that the Sphere of Influence Update is exempt from CEQA pursuant to 15061B3, and approve the notice of exemption for filing, and adopt resolution number 2023-2406, approving the Pacific Reefs Water District MSR and Sphere of Influence Update.
Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, before we do the recommendation, I had a couple of questions. What were the changes we made from the workshop?
The changes are, the revisions list is on page 19 of your agenda packet. So we included a recommendation for staggered board terms. Currently, the board terms are all the same. We also included a recommendation for holding meetings in a public meeting space. And we added clarification that the treasurer and secretary are not board members, and clarified that the administrative fees are applied to parcels that are not currently receiving water service. And then we also included a recommendation to confirm the correct process is followed for establishing special assessments.
Okay, thank you. It occurred to me that I should have been asking these questions before, but how do we follow up? We won't see this MSR another 5-10 years. How do we follow up to make sure that those things get changed?
Well, the commission can always direct staff to prepare a report on changes in conditions since
I mean, we do this for every MSR. There's always determinations, recommendations, and things, but we don't follow up to see if something has changed. And I don't know, I'm not suggesting we set up a committee to go back and look, but I think some of these things are important to follow up with to see that they're actually following through with it. So I'm not sure how we should do that, but it's something that's been on my mind for a while because we seem to make all these recommendations and then we don't even deal with it until the next go around, and that could be years.
That is an excellent point. That's the intent of the continuity plan that we have proposed for our work program for next fiscal year, is to develop this continuity plan that would serve as a report to the Commission on follow-up items from MSR sphere updates and from applications and general Commission direction.
That would be excellent. It's the same thought process I have for the next item or the next workshop item for Gualala. Do you look at the previous MSRs that was done in 2016 to see what determinations or recommendations we have recommended back then and sort of bring it forward to this meeting?
We do. We update them as needed for this new study, but that is one of the places we start, is with the previous determinations.
And do we have any upper hand on things? I mean, we go back and say they haven't done it. What recourse do we have to make those changes?
We can make some fairly strong determinations for the studies when we adopt them, and ultimately, if that district were to come to LAFCO for an annexation or any activation of latent powers, the Commission and staff would be looking at those determinations in the MSR, and then that would weigh into the recommendation.
We can deny an annexation?
Correct.
I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Would you mind bringing the slide deck back to the recommended actions, please? And Commissioner McCordy.
Yeah, just a real quick question too. And I know the state wants consolidation of our smaller water districts. In the report, do you consider that very much? I know there was some discussion about the adjacent districts, but there is no plan at the moment, obviously, for us to do that. But I just wondered if that's something that we should mention. We're talking about water districts in our coastal area especially.
For this round of studies, we are looking at the adjacent providers with that in mind. We did reach out to the State Water Board and discussed each of these districts and the private water companies that are in that area. Specifically for the Albion area, they had no intent or had not identified any need to consolidate at this time. But that is a push, and one of the reasons that we are including them in the studies, so that we'll have a place to start should the State Water Board start to force those.
Yeah, it's a concern of mine with climate change happening. A lot of these shallower aquifers that provide springs, and which this particular water company is dependent on, that they may go away, and then what happens? You know, it is a pretty small group of people that could depend on trucked water, but it's still something that long-term Mendocino has to focus on.
Okay, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment, if they could use the raise hand feature on Zoom. And there are no members in the room and no hands online, so I'd be looking for a motion for the recommended action. Oh, Commissioner Roden.
Yeah, I did have a question. Just listening to everybody else. On page 3-6 of, this is in the determinations, and it's determination 21, and it's talking about the district not having a website, and it says the district has adopted hardship resolutions for the past few years. But I wasn't clear. A hardship to develop a website, so they've passed a resolution that says it's a hardship. Is that, I guess it just wasn't totally clear with that sentence.
Yeah, typically the hardship is the financial consideration for hosting and maintaining a website. We did reach out to Streamline just to get an idea of what they might charge for a very small district, and it's about $100 a month.
Yeah.
To maintain a website through
Yeah,
them.
there's just so few people. But I would suggest it clarifying that sentence, maybe saying the district has adopted financial hardship resolutions, has not created a website because of financial hardships. Just a little bit unclear. Maybe there are other people sitting here in the future. Just be more clear. This one. Oh, yeah, no, that's, I just have a couple of really minor, just typo kind of things, so it's not really taking up the commission's time. I'll give those to Uma later. So somebody was about to make a motion. I'll do it. Okay, I move the recommended actions.
Gonzalez seconds.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
And Chair Moorhan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, E.O. Hemmon.
I just wanted to thank Robert Cutler, who is the board president for Pacific Reefs Water District. He was very responsive and was quick to provide any information we requested, and he is on the line today, and I just wanted to acknowledge him.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you everybody on their team that's working with a little tiny agency. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5B, public hearing, final budget and work program for fiscal year 24-25. You have a presentation on this as well?
I do, thank you. This item starts on page 91 of the agenda packet. Wanted to briefly go over the budget development process again. On March 3rd, the executive committee met and reviewed the budget and work program and made a recommendation to the commission. On May 6th, there was a public hearing that included adoption of a proposed budget and work program, and that has been distributed to all of the agencies. And today we're holding the public hearing to consider adoption of the final budget and work program for next fiscal year. The expenditures are broken down into basic services and supplies, a work plan, and application. Basic services includes our staffing and the basic office operations. Services and supplies include the office equipment, professional services, training, and the vendors that help us keep the operations going on in the office. The work plan consists of 9 special districts for next fiscal year, as well as a discussion of private water companies. And the application is an item that varies annually with however many applications we receive. As part of our basic services includes the update to policies and procedures. We'll be continuing to work on updating our application forms. We included development of a continuity plan to track the commission findings, recommendations, and terms and conditions for staff follow-up. We've also included continued outreach and coordination with agencies, increasing the website catalog to include past meeting materials in particular, as well as updating that with as many of our items, our records, documents of record. And then we also hope to increase staffing by finding a clerk. The work plan consists primarily of the 9 inland region water districts and mutual water companies. That includes Calpella County Water District, Hopland Public Utilities District, Laytonville County Water District, Millview, Potter Valley Irrigation District, Redwood Valley County Water District, Round Valley County Water District, the Russian River Flood Control District, and Willow County Water District. I'd like to note that we will be continuing to finish the coastal region water districts within the first half of the next fiscal year.
Commissioner McGorty, did you want to wait to answer your question until the
So with the consolidation of some of these districts into Kaya, kind of Kaya's new, what are we calling it, the Russian River Water Association?
Ukiah Valley Water Authority?
Yeah, sorry, I have so many different names that those guys belong to, I've lost track. But with their consolidation, they basically will still have a board, but most of the operations and rates and so forth are eventually going to be set by this new JPA. So how are you going to do a review of that?
Well, our plan is to start working on those at the beginning of our next calendar year. So we'll wait till the second half fiscal year to take on those Ukiah Valley water districts. And we'll be working with the Ukiah Valley Water Authority closely in developing those MSRs, but because they will remain special districts at this time, we are still required to prepare the MSR and sphere updates. But the hope is that our studies will help to support their consolidation efforts in the future. So we're still learning what that Ukiah Valley Water Authority is doing and how that will all work and what the timeline for their consolidations is. But that will be something that we work through with them through this work plan process.
So they've signed the JPA, so they exist as an entity. So, but as a JPA, they don't get reviewed by LAFCO. Is that correct?
Correct. The JPA itself is not subject to LAFCO, but the agencies that it includes are.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Roden?
I think it's a good point, that things are dynamic now, and they'll probably be dynamic, changing in the next year when you're ready to do these MSRs. And so is it still worth doing them while things are still in the shifting stages? What are your thoughts about that?
We did consider that. We have pushed this work plan a number of years in anticipation of that consolidation efforts. We spoke to members of the Ukiah Valley Water Authority a few months ago with this idea of doing these studies in this next fiscal year so that we can support their efforts through this. So that's our intent at this point. The work plan has flexibility if we get to that point and it is clear that it's not, they're not ready for that, then it is possible for the commission to kind of reprioritize.
Thank you. Please. Oh, Commissioner Horsley, did you have a question on this slide?
On page 91, the chart there of the budget, it's anticipated there will remain a cash balance of approximately $52,000 in the current fiscal year. So that's been divided up into $23,000 for anticipated use of cash balance and $29,000 for the work plan contingency. Was that division made based on the apportionment?
This was to offset any need to increase apportionments for this year, for next fiscal year, and also to keep enough budget for continuing the work plan from this fiscal year into the next.
For the contingency. And I just wanted to thank you for attachment 2, because that was the way it's been presented and the way it shows with the changes is so easy to read. It made it so easy to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Were you done with your presentation?
Not quite.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So this is the table 1 from the agenda packet. So this shows an anticipated cash balance of $23,000 being used from this fiscal year, with the remaining of that cash balance going into the work plan contingency for completion of this fiscal year's work plan. So it would be a total budget of $308,000. No proposed change to the apportionments that would go to the agencies for this budget. The revenue, LAFCO's revenue is based on apportionments, interest from our bank accounts in the county treasury, unreserved equity, which is that cash balance, and then the service fees. So a portion of our service fees remains with LAFCO to offset some of the overhead and administrative costs. This is a summary of the revenue. So again, the unreserved equity balance cash balance. The apportionment fees remaining the same at $275,000. And then no change, this one, no change to reserves or contingencies other than that rollover of the work plan. So the operating reserves would remain at $81,500. The legal reserves would remain at $50,000. So in summary, there are no changes from the May 6th adopted proposed budget and work program. We have received no public comments to date. The recommendation is to adopt Resolution 232407, approving the final budget and work program for next fiscal year and directing the executive officer to distribute as follows. I will note that the resolution in the agenda packet is a duplicate of the Pacific Reefs resolution. The exhibit to that budget is correct. To that resolution is correct. We did post the correct resolution on the website this morning and emailed it to the commissioners, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Can you go back to the work plan diagram you had up? So those are the ones that are going to start January 1.
We will start this work program in July 1st. So a number of them will start in July, and then the Ukiah Valley water districts we will start in January.
What about the ones that we're still working on?
We'll continue to, those we will roll out first in the next fiscal year, but some of these that we are hoping will be able to apply that streamlined MSR process that we had brought forward to the commission a few months ago. We're hoping that to use that for some of these to streamline.
My concern is not so much the money. There's an extra $23,000 you suggested that could be rolled over. It's the time. And we talked about, I know we've got the tax share agreements coming hopefully next month or this month. And there's going to open up the floodgates for a lot of other things that you're going to have to be. It's been on our schedule. What with the budget that's here now for the next fiscal year, do you have funds in there for extra help?
With the budget that we are proposing, we currently have 2 analysts that are assigned to the work plan. We have analyst Jen Crump and Spencer Richard, and then we also, our analyst Larkin Filer is been focused on applications and will remain that way. So I think that we will be able to move the plan forward. We also have the ability to contract with for additional help.
That's the South, what do you call it?
South Fork Consulting.
South Fork Consulting. Do you anticipate using the consultants to deal with the applications and then your staff stay on the MSR since it's a basic service?
We prefer to do the applications in-house because we have a better understanding of the nuances of our region, where consultants don't really have the knowledge of the ins and outs of the county.
So you're using basic services for applications. How do we get, what's the reimbursement on that then?
Applications are at cost, so.
Yeah, I know, but you're going to get reimbursed for your time working on those applications.
Correct, outside the basic services
I'm just
budget.
concerned about, again, I'm not worried about the money, I'm more concerned about the time. Getting all these projects through the process and still keep on our work plan schedules. Because it is important to get these done, mainly because we're trying to get consolidation. We're trying to get a lot of these that are pretty old done, and I think one of the commissioners mentioned that it's a lot going on right now and a lot of dynamics, and I just don't want to get bogged down because we don't have the staffing to finish these all up. And based on my experience on this commission, we never get our work plans done when we think we're going to get them done, and I'm just concerned about that again. There's a lot here, a lot to do.
It's an
Plus the
aggressive
new
schedule.
stuff coming up with the tax share agreement. Getting this here real soon. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McGordy.
I move the recommended action.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make sure that any members of the public that wish to comment on the work plan and budget have an opportunity. So if you are on Zoom and wish to speak, you could use the raise hand feature on the Zoom platform or press *9 on your telephone. We have no members of the public in the audience chambers. Seeing no hands raised, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McGorty?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley? I'm sorry, I didn't hear your response.
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair Moorhead?
Yes.
And motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes our public hearing items for the day. We'll move on to a workshop. Item 6A, workshop on Gualala Community Services District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study. E.O. Hinman, it looks as though you have a slideshow presentation for us.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So this is the Gualala Community Services District. This is a public workshop. The last sphere update for the district was in 2016. I do want to just mention right offhand that their general manager, Chris Troyan, was very helpful and responsive in assisting us with this study. We also did coordinate with Sonoma LAFCO, as this district does straddle, or it is right on the county line, and provide some services in Sonoma County. So as a reminder, a municipal service review is a study of a local agency's governance and operations. This is a snapshot in time. It provides an inventory and analysis of agency services, including capacity, financial ability of the district to continue its services, accountability, anticipated growth. This is a second round MSR for the district. So the district was formed July 7th of 1986 under Community Services District Law. The district boundary is about 1,400 acres in size. It is a single service provider at this time and providing wastewater services. The population is estimated at 2,100, and there are approximately 416 customers receiving service at this time. The current sphere is coterminous with the addition of the Gualala Point Regional Park, just over the county line in Sonoma County here. This is a vicinity map. So again, this dark line is the county line. And then the Gualala CSD, Anchor Bay, is just north of that, about 3 miles. We did do a workshop on the Mendocino County Waterworks District Number 2, which serves Anchor Bay, a few months ago. And then Sea Ranch is located in Sonoma County along the coast in this area. The district has a 5-member board of directors and a general manager. They also have a finance director, 2 operators, and an administrative assistant. Their services include wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal. They do treat to tertiary treatment. They have 4 zones within their district boundaries. Zones 1 and 2 are the only that are served by the district at this time. Zones 3 and 4 indicate future service areas. They have 2 outside agency areas that they serve. Both of those are in Sonoma County. They take effluent from the Sea Ranch North Plant, which acts as a pumping station at this point, pumps up to Gualala CSD wastewater treatment plant, and is treated to tertiary and then is sent back to the golf course. They also provide services to Gualala Point Regional Park and have done so since the wastewater treatment plant went online. These are some maps of the service areas. You can see zones 1 and 2. So it's pretty much the community of Gualala along Highway 1. Zones 3 and 4, again, have been identified for future service areas, but are not currently receiving service. And then this is a blow up of the area, outside agency areas that are receiving service from the CSD in Sonoma County. The collection system, both the collection system and the wastewater treatment plant were put online in 1992. The treatment plant has a capacity of 131,000 gallons per day and is currently at about 59% capacity. They have 4 storage ponds with a combined capacity of 28 million gallons. 28 million gallons. Their operation includes the treatment of effluent from the Sea Ranch Sanitation Zone's North Plant, which serves the northern portion of the Sea Ranch development, under a tri-party agreement with Sonoma County and the Sonoma Water Agency. They also have an agreement with the Sea Ranch Golf Links to use the treated water for irrigation on the golf course. And again, that is in the Sea Ranch community. The map of their facilities. So the district boundary is the river here, Gualala River. You can see that the wastewater treatment plant is actually located in Sonoma County outside of their district boundaries. There's several lift stations located here, here, and here along Highway 1. This is the Gualala Point Regional Park. And this is the here's the golf links. Oh, these are percolation ponds, and this is the Sea Ranch development down in here. And on the right-hand side, this is a schematic of their collection system. So a sphere of influence is the probable future boundary of the agency. It also indicates the plan for logical and orderly development. In 2016, a coterminous sphere was adopted with the inclusion of the Gualala Point Regional Park in that sphere. I wanted to note that our policies include an area of interest policy, which is used to identify a geographic area beyond the sphere of influence to delineate areas for increased coordination with other agencies. So for the proposed sphere of influence, it would remain the same, but with the inclusion of 2 areas of interest. One being the Anchor Bay community. The district has been in discussions with the Mendocino County Waterworks District 2 that serves Anchor Bay, discussing possible consolidation with that agency or some form of regionalization. They also have done a recent study with the State Water Board about potential service areas outside their boundaries, and one of those includes the proposed Zone 5 here, which is identified in that study. There have been failing systems in this area, and it may be an area for expansion in the future. Staff is recommending those 2 areas be included as areas of interest. So staff is recommending that those 2 areas be included as areas of interest. So for process, this is the workshop for the Commission to review, discuss, and request revisions on the draft MSR sphere update, and also invite public comment. As a reminder, no action will be taken on this draft MSR sphere update today. In the future, we will schedule a public hearing for formal consideration of the study. And I believe that Chris Troyon is online today to help answer questions.
Okay, Commissioner Horsley.
On page 112, it talks about in 1991, the Gualala Municipal Advisory Council was formed. I wondered, are those public members or are those professionals?
The Municipal Advisory Committee, those are members of the community.
So they are public members.
Yeah, they're appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
On page 122, the staffing, 5 individuals, are they all full-time or some part-time?
I may have to ask Chris Troyon to clarify that. Chris, are you on?
I don't see that name on Zoom.
I can do a clarification for the next study.
Okay. I was just thinking if they're thinking of taking on duties, these are already full cost.
Excellent point.
And the last sentence under 2311 says, in addition, since 2023, the district has maintained a contract with the Mendocino County Waterworks District, number 2, to provide management, operational, and administrative services. To me, and this is just, I'm assuming you want anything that doesn't seem quite clear. I wasn't sure who was providing that to whom. So it's clarified on page 124. It's very clear, but maybe just change that a little bit so that it's clearer instead of having to go down to page 1 or to read that. On page 123, it talks about perhaps participating in the Watershed Council. And those kind of things, it's like, participate. What does that mean? Going to the meetings? What does the recommendation mean there, or the suggestion?
It's really to increase collaboration amongst the different parties and kind of, because they do have an NPDES permit and there's they are located in the watershed. It would just be to coordinate with other regional partners. There may be opportunities through that council for grant funding to better the properties or the operations. That's kind of the intent of that.
So it isn't just attending the meetings, it's coordinating together on how they can better use their resources together. Okay. All right. On page 128, it talks about these grant funds and how they were delayed and so forth. Have those grant funds come in now?
I believe they have. That was for that planning. They did a planning study through the state water board at a grant project, and the delay and the cash flow between invoicing and receiving payments from the state, they took out a loan to kind of buffer that delay. So I think that project has been completed.
Okay, so it's not clear in there that the grant funds have finally been released.
Okay.
Okay. And then on page 129, it says the actual costs were estimated to be approximately, this is the very top, estimated to be $15.36 per 1,000 gallons. In response to the rate study, the Sonoma County supervisors approved a negotiated new rate of $13.28, and this increase will have a substantial impact on the revenues, but it's still lower than what the actual costs are. That's what I'm reading. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Any idea why they approved a lower rate than the actual cost? Were they not requested to pay the full rate at the time?
They were, I'm not sure what the rates they were paying before, but they were well below, and they were not covering their costs at all. So they went into that rate study and came out with a recommendation to renegotiate that contract, which is what they did. And I'm not sure the impact of that difference between the 15 and the 13, but I will ask for clarification.
Okay, it just looks strange that they're saying that this is what it costs us, but that they negotiated a lower rate than that.
Better.
And I think that is, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had Commissioner Gonzalez, McGorty, and then Ward. So Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yeah. Page 120 shows board of directors term expiration. That there was none there. Curious if the answer.
Yeah, we requested that information, but it wasn't forthcoming in time for the printing of the packet. So that will be something we follow up on for the public review draft.
Commissioner McGorty?
Just a comment on the proposed change in the potential additions and expansion. I think that's an extremely good idea for two reasons. First of all, don't talk about water being disposed, talk about it being repurposed. We have severe water issues in coastal Mendocino County, and there's two reasons why we'd want to do this. One of them would be the possibility of irrigating landscape and things with the water, which is already underway, which is great. And the second reason is that if we're getting rid of septic tanks, that's a plus too, because there's potential for groundwater leaching, and the groundwater tends to be shallow there, so its connection to surface water is an issue for water quality. So anything we could do to clean up water and get it centrally located and repurposed is, I think, a really environmentally wise move.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Yes. Thank you. Back in 2016, the CEQA was approved for adding the regional park. Was there CEQA done?
There wasn't. This area has been served since the plant came online in 1992. So the impact from including it in the sphere was considered exempt. I mean, it was not, there was no impact because it was already being served.
Yeah, but you said earlier that if there's no change to the coterminous SOI, there's no request for a CEQA review. But back then they added the park, which increased their SOI.
So CEQA, when you look at the sphere of influence and the applicability of CEQA, well, CEQA does apply, and Marcia might have to help me out here for the specifics, but my understanding is that what CEQA is most concerned with is the potential for growth-inducing impacts. If the area is already receiving service, it's a park, there isn't going to be significant development associated with that. And so that was the basis.
Okay, so there are exceptions to the rule then. Okay. So future services, what, I'm a little confused. Goes up, Old Stage Road goes up so far, and then there's a bunch, I know there's a bunch of houses there because I serviced them through refuse services, but where, those are all septic tanks?
They are all septic tanks, and it's heavily treed in that area, and so there's a lot of root intrusion into the septic systems, and they are starting to fail. They have a number of failures.
Okay, so the so is there any that I know it's talked about future service areas, but I don't know if that included all that area up in like Sunset and that area.
It includes the Old Stage Road and Ocean Ridge Road, Ocean Ridge Drive, I believe, specifically, and that was detailed in that planning study that was done under the grant. They did identify a need to, excuse me, increase the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant before they're able to annex that area.
So I think this is our only MSR that I recall that goes out into another county. I think there might have been one up north a long time ago, but how does it work where you have a SOI that includes another county?
We, excuse me, we closely coordinate with the other LAFCO. So when you have cross county agencies or districts, a principal LAFCO is identified early on. We are the principal LAFCO for Gualala CSD because it is located mostly in Mendocino County. But whenever we do any kind of cross county work, we always coordinate with the other LAFCO. So we did coordinate with Sonoma LAFCO, Mark Brampett, who's the executive officer there, and he coordinated with Sonoma Water Agency and the Sea Ranch organization. And I understand that there is some planned change for possible change in services for the Sea Ranch area. That's currently being worked through, so we don't have full details yet, but that is one of the reason that we did not recommend including Sea Ranch in the sphere of influence.
Okay, and then the elephant in the room to me is the financial condition of the Gualala wastewater. We didn't see any audited financial statements, correct?
We do have audited financial statements.
Were they included? I didn't see any.
They are not included in the document itself, but we have included the analysis and the information from those audits. They just recently completed their rate study, so their rates are updating over the next 5 years. I think it's increasing 28%. So they are coming up to speed with their finances, and they have applied for, I think, $10 million worth of grants to upgrade their wastewater treatment plant so that they can increase their capacity to serve these additional areas.
So you think that's sufficient? I mean, there's sufficient revenues without looking at the audits and stuff. I mean, I saw your tables, but a little concerned about they've been just basically keeping afloat with grant money, and then as Candace just said earlier, I mean, Sonoma County didn't give them the full dollar amount, so they're going to be short there. They want to expand their site to take on more service areas, and I'm just concerned about the financial. A little different than the one we just approved, where they were in very good financial condition. This one doesn't seem to. And there needs to be more, I think, access for their services on Old Stage Road and other. How are they going to do it with a lack of money and a lack of reserves? So those are just concerns that I could see. And it's something, did we look at this in 2016? I mean, I wanted to look at the previous one. Were they in great shape in 2016 or the same condition?
Sorry, they will be playing catch up for a little while. This rate study brought to light the disparity between the rates that were being applied within the district versus the rates that were being applied for the effluent being received from the Sea Ranch. So it is a bit of catch up. The other thing to note, especially regarding the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, is the treatment plant's about 59% capacity. 60% of that is utilized by the Sea Ranch. So if the conditions change and that agreement is no longer, they will have increased capacity for other areas within their district, in zones 3 and 4 in particular.
Yeah, but capacity means they don't have the revenue too. I mean, if they lose Sea Ranch or the golf course or things, I assume the golf course is paying them for the water. I hope they are.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm just concerned about that, and it wasn't in your presentation and all, but there's some real issues financially with this organization. So I just concerned about that, and for the rates. I mean, we've seen rating adjustments, but are they still going to maintain their services with those adjustments, or are we looking at significant increases in the future? I think they need more customers, and they do that with their SOI now, and the area of interest, we'll see.
Commissioner Roden, do you have a question?
Yeah, just some comments. First, I think it might be nice to have an acronym table right at the bottom, following the table of contents, instead of in the back. Just, then when the reader sees the table of contents, they realize, oh, here's an easy place to look up all the millions of acronyms. And then on 337, which 3-37, I'm sorry, I don't know what page that is on the, because I have a hard copy.
Page 145.
Okay, I don't know. So the paragraph about the Sea Ranch Sanitation Zone Northern Facility, and when I read it, I thought, well, what is this facility? like, it made it, I wondered if there was a treatment facility, and if there's a treatment facility, why are they sending the effluent up to, and it explains it in 3-2-1 somewhere. Wait. Yeah, it explains it later. But maybe there could be, just a hyperlink, in parentheses, C section, blah, 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 or maybe no hyperlink, but to describe it. And that happened, I had the same experience as Commissioner Horsley did with regard to who's contracting with who, but then later it became apparent. And it leads me to a general comment about this MSR and the one for Pacific Reef, which is that there's a lot of redundancy in the way these are organized. And I know that it's responding to the CKH law, right, and what has to be included in MSRs, but maybe there's a way that we could have less repetition and still get to the determinations, and we'd have shorter reports. It might be easier for the authors to write them, but we could look into that. Maybe that could be part of basic service. Just seeing how, I don't know, there's just a lot of redundancy. I'm sure you know what I mean. Did Larkin put this together, or was it a contractor?
We put together a template, and one of our newer analysts has been working on it. So we can certainly look at it to see if we can reduce that redundancy.
Yeah. Anyway, I think the report is great. I think the determinations really summarize what was, reported throughout the report. So I thought it was really, really good. And then, in response to somebody's question, you said, I think this had to do with why Santa Rosa, you had recommended that, not Santa Rosa, Sea Ranch, I put SR, why Sea Ranch wouldn't be proposed to be in the SOI for this district. And did you say it was because they're considering constructing their own treatment facility? I had read that somewhere. Sea Ranch might.
So they have 2 treatment facilities in Sea Ranch that fall under Sonoma County's CSA 6, which is operated, managed by Sonoma Water Agency in coordination with the Sea Ranch Homeowners Association. The North Plant has used to provide secondary treatment, but a number of years ago, their permit was taken away by the State Water Board, and so now it basically serves as a pumping station to pump the effluent up to the Gualala CSD treatment plant.
Yeah, I wondered if Sea Ranch does upgrade and take care of its own effluent, how that would affect the finances of Gualala Community Services District. And
it would certainly have an impact on their finances. They would, part of their grant funding that they have requested would upgrade infrastructure and then help fund some of their collection system infrastructure to serve the future areas that are identified. So they would have to come up with, they would have to have more customers within their district boundaries.
Yeah, I liked, just back to that organizational thing, I remember when I got to the section that said, describe the services, which was later, I think it was the section 3 is called Municipal Services, and it's a really nice overview of all the, what's happening in this area and the services provided. And everything that comes before is really specific about coordination and all these things, but you don't have the lay of the land first. So anyway, that's just feedback for when you're considering possibly consolidating the organization of the report. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Horsley and then Commissioner Ward.
Just to follow up on that, I too looked at it and thought, wow, there's a lot of redundancy, but for an individual agency, this was my thought process, when I first read the first MSR, was so fascinating to read all of that template language to understand the rest of the MSR. So if it's already in there and it's a template and that isn't something that you're reproducing because it's there in the template and it's just the rest of it regarding the agency itself. I'm going back to the list of water districts that you had for the inland Mendocino County and thinking of the length of these. But if a lot of it is template and that doesn't add a whole bunch of time, I don't see that as significant. And it's so helpful for that particular agency or commissioners or board members that are on those agencies to read all that information about LAFCO and what's required and so forth, as long as it's already in the template. I don't know how you have it set up, but if, you know, it is very large. I can't help but go back to 2000. Well, at that time, cities were trying to do their own MSRs. The districts were trying to do their own MSRs and SOIs. I like the idea that there's this template now because all of the relevant and needed information will be there because you have the template. It was very difficult back then to try to put something together because there were no guidelines really for an MSR. But again, I think the time, looking at the time for each of those, what were there, 7 or 9 different water districts? Again, I don't know what your template holds, but.
Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, thank you. To my previous question earlier, an hour ago or so, about looking at the previous MSRs, were there any things in the determinations that are still in the determinations now? For instance, there's no capital improvement plan. Did we talk about a no capital improvement plan in 16? Did we talk about a website that they needed to have up and going, and we're doing it again in 24? These are the kind of things that I don't know if we're following up, see if they're actually getting done. And I don't want to just throw it out in another 5 years. Do you, I didn't look at it and I apologize, didn't read the 16 MSR to see. You must have.
Yes, when we do these MSRs, we pull those recommendations forward, and then we review them and update them as we move through the municipal service review preparation. And then we also go over those determinations with the district themselves to update or add if we need to, or remove those that are no longer applicable. So they do have a website now, and they
do?
They do have a website. You know, one of the things we provide is a compliance, because since the 2016 document, there has been the requirement, SB 929, I think, went into effect that had all these requirements. So we provide a handout in these MSRs now that is a checklist of all of these compliance requirements for those websites. So they have a pretty good website. It doesn't go back very far, so there's always room for improvement in those. So we do include a condition, I mean, not a condition, but a recommendation or determination that they could improve on.
Well, that's good. And then you talked earlier about you're going to reviewing some of the MSRs and actually see if they're maintaining what we requested.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any additional pens from the commissioner, so I'd like to go online. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment? You can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom platform or press *9 on your telephone. Seeing no hands raised, and we have no members of the public in the room, so this will conclude the workshop, and we will have the public hearing at a future meeting. We'll move on to item 7A, the proposed amendment to policy 12.2, outside agency services. E.O. Hinman, did you want to take this one?
So to give you guys a break from my voice, Larkin is going to be presenting this one.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Thank Thank you very much. I'm just getting the PowerPoint up. Just give me a moment. And there we go. So this is a proposed policy amendment for outside agency services. And the LAFCO law is what allows a city or a special district to provide services by contract or agreement outside its jurisdictional boundary, but within its sphere of influence in anticipation of a later change of organization or in response to an existing or impending threat to health or safety. Our local LAFCO policies then further refine the state law, and in this case, it's the outside agency services, which was established under Policy 12.2 in 2016. And so we are proposing an amendment to that 2016 policy for outside agency services. And part of what we did was look at examples from other LAFCOs. So the underlying goals of the policy amendment were modernization and clarification. So under modernization, we wanted to learn from other LAFCOs. So we looked at existing policies and we carried over, including a definition section, including review items that go into each of the executive officer reports when we have an outside agency services agreement application. We also included health and safety threat criteria. We included standard conditions of approval, and we also added a temporary water hauling section based on direction multiple years ago from the executive committee. And then we also updated the section outline in order to improve readability. And then under clarification, you know, it was a big goal of ours to help agencies understand the LAFCO process and expectations. We included guidance in parenthetical explanations throughout the policy. And then we also wanted to ensure that exemption coordination occurs with the EO to prevent a breakdown in communication and lengthy cleanup efforts down the road. So we did quite a bit of outreach through the process of developing this policy amendment. And I want to give a special thanks to the focus group for working with us and providing feedback on the policy amendment language. The original focus group included the City of Ukiah with Craig Schlatter, the Community Development Director, and then Ukiah Valley Sanitation District with Wing C. Fox, the Interim District Manager. And then we had an expanded focus group, which included staff from the City of Fort Bragg with Isaac Whippy, the City Manager, John Smith, the Director of Public Works, and Chantel O'Neill, the Assistant Director of the Engineering Division of Public Works. So staff's recommendation is to consider the Policies and Procedures Committee recommendation for the proposed policy amendment and to consider adoption of resolution number 2023-2408, approving the amendment to policy 12.2 for outside agency services. And that resolution is on page 184 of the packet. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Larkin. Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Horsley, and Commissioner McGordy.
Yeah, thank you. Can you give us an example of what this is going to change from, let's say, one of our previous outside service MSRs or whatever that would change? Just give an overview of what would change. Is that for Larkin or for you?
So
Go ahead, Larkin.
I think some of the things that the Commission will see as far as changes involve more standardization of information. So, you know, we have standard conditions of approval that we'll look at with each application that comes forward. We'll also have standard items that will be included in the executive officer's report when these come to the commission for consideration. We included some information. I don't know that there was significant changes in any of the requirements. It was more so reorganizing the policy to make it more user-friendly, and also providing a lot more explanation in the policy about the intent and the background. One example of that is the portion of the policy that talks about exemptions. So state law under 56133 includes provisions or portions of outside agency services that are exempt from LAFCO review. And so we went through and provided some background on, LAFCO's intent in coordination and receiving notice from those agencies in that type of situation, just to make sure that, everything is considered, and, that there's just back and forth with LAFCO through that type of process, so that there's no issues. Sometimes LAFCO doesn't find out about outside agency services until we do a municipal service review of an agency, and so the goal is to try and get information earlier in the process from agencies for those types of things. So I don't know that there's any drastic changes in any of the requirements. It was more so providing more guidance and clarification and information about the intent, and again, standardization for what comes forward to the commission when we receive an application.
So there were three focus group meetings and one public workshop meeting. What were the issues? I mean, seems like there was a lot of discussion on this. It doesn't sound like there was much that needed to be changed, but what were the discussions? I mean, you had Fort Bragg involved, you had City of Ukiah involved. Just curious what issues they were bringing up. Was it contentious?
The issues primarily focused around the portion of that I just discussed, the exemptions to the state law, and how far does LAFCO go in requiring coordination, and we basically transitioned from really strongly asking for that coordination with agencies to at this point the policy is framed more as encouraging and providing flexibility for that coordination. And then the other aspect that involved a lot of discussion was the water hauling policy, which is a brand new policy, and basically is in response to the drought that happened a number of years ago now, but it's something that we still want to keep on our radar, and wanted to make sure that we addressed for future needs. And again, that was a kind of refining the language again, so that it is more of an encouragement for collaboration and flexibility in the notice and the information that's provided to LAFCO through that process, because in an emergency situation, obviously addressing the emergency is the priority, not necessarily reporting. So I think those were two of the primary concerns.
Thank you, Larkin.
Commissioner Horsley.
You're welcome.
I just want to thank everybody that worked on this for the Sand District and the City of Ukiah and possible annexations, the consolidations. This was an important issue for us, for the Sand District. So it was very encouraging, and I got to say heartwarming, to see the LAFCO staff and working with the agencies when there was an unusual need or a different need, and not being extremely rigid and realizing what the needs were and working with everybody. So thank you very much.
Commissioner McGorty.
I just wanted to comment on the water hauling issues, seeing as how I lived through it. So speed was of the essence, and what I just want to point out is that when we get into droughts, there's so many things that change. First of all, the governor put out an executive order for a drought emergency, so that tends to really shake things up. A lot of local rules may be overruled. new restrictions may be put in, and if LAFCO is going to be involved, we have to have a speedy review process baked into it, because we moved pretty quickly on that drought emergency for hauling water from the time that we saw the need to when we actually got water into Fort Bragg was 6 weeks, which for Mendocino County government is extraordinary. Hardly ever seen anything move that quickly, but we needed to do it. We also, if I'm not mistaken, cities have mutual aid agreements. How do they play into this too? Because certainly for fire service and ambulance and other things, and as I recall, that was one of the things that we were trying to take a look at, were mutual aid agreements for the future, so that if we do have problems like this, that there's a way that it's already kind of set up. And as I think about this, I wondered if that was part of what was brought up or discussed at all, when you held your deliberations.
Thank you, Commissioner McGordy. Those are really good points. I should clarify that the water hauling proposed policy is basically a reduction in requirement as it's proposed. So the way that the LAFCO law is written right now, any potable water supply, whether it's piped or trucked, does require LAFCO approval. And so we basically have written this this portion of the policy, which is new, to only require reporting, notification and reporting to LAFCO in those emergency situations, instead of requiring the agencies to come through the LAFCO process because of the dire nature of the needs at those times. So it is a streamlining of what would normally be required in that type of a situation. And then as far as the mutual aid agreements, I'm not sure if Marcia has any thoughts, but again, it's, whether it's a JPA or a mutual aid agreement, regardless of the relationship and services between agencies and those types of agreements, LAFCO's responsibility is to look at the provision of services from cities and special districts. So at the end of the day, when we prepare a municipal service review and look at the appropriateness of a sphere for an agency, we're having to pull those types of relationships and service provisions into that analysis process. So I don't know, Marcia, if you have anything further to add.
No, I think you covered that well. And I would say that the LAFCO policy doesn't interfere or intercede in that relationship, that mutual aid relationship. And as Larkin mentioned, it sort of scaled back what was required in those situations in our policy.
That's really good news, because we want to be able to be flexible when things aren't going well. And as I stated earlier, the coast is very water insecure. I feel like we're making pretty good progress here in the interior with consolidations of water districts, and we're working on a new JPA for Ill River water transfer, but the coast still remains, other than Fort Bragg, at risk in a lot of places to provide water, especially if something interrupts a water supply like a drought.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any additional pens up by commissioners. I would say that although this process might have been lengthy and there were several meetings that occurred, I think it was an important step towards working on the relationships between LAFCO and our cities and special districts. And so I just want to thank everybody that worked on creating the policy, and also to note that's probably not the end of the changes to the policy, and it should be a fluid, and we should be moving as we see room for improvement with all of our policies. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item? There are no members of the public in the room. If you are on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature or press *9 on your phone. Seeing no hands, I bring it back to the commissioners and invite a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Horsley?
Who?
I'm sorry.
Horsley?
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Roden? I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing in the chambers.
I said yes, Mari Roden.
Thank you. Sorry. Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty?
Yes.
And Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We are on to item number 8, information and report items. We can start with item 8A, the work plan and current and future proposals. E.O. Hinman.
Thank you. This starts on page 190 of your agenda packet. All the applications on file are still pending tax share agreements. We have been coordinating with the auditor and county staff to facilitate tax share negotiation process for Anderson Valley CSD and the Elk CSD applications. As far as the work plan, it is progressing. With direction from the workshop today, we'll be preparing the Gualala CSD study and the Anchor Bay studies for public hearing. The Irish Beach Water District, the Elk County Water District, and Westport will be coming to the workshop in the next few months. I will report that Casper South Water District, we have been unsuccessful in contacting any board member, and it does appear that they have maybe in receivership. So we are working to contact the receiver and to get more information about that one. Otherwise, I have nothing more on the work plan, unless there are questions.
I don't see any questions.
Yep.
Commissioner Ward.
So if it's in receivership, what does that mean? Are they getting service? People getting service?
I believe when it goes into receivership, someone is identified to make sure that the service is continued. Honestly, I'm not sure what it means as far as LAFCO's role in that. So we're working through that. I have been working with our council.
Yeah, it seems like Marcia is ready to respond to that question.
Well, I think until we talk to the receiver, we won't know exactly what is taking place there. But it's not unheard of. I mean, I've seen very small districts go into receivership, and oftentimes it's a financial issue, but there are sometimes operational problems that will cause it to go into, regulatory issues that will land it into receivership. So it will still be functioning so long as the infrastructure and everything is workable. The receiver the intent of that is to continue operating as best as they can until they determine what the, final outcome is going to be. And that's why we would like to contact the receiver, get some information about what the plans are.
When did it go into receivership?
I'm not sure. I have been trying to contact them for about 6 months. So I would guess.
So 6 months, nobody's been billed, nobody's been, if their
Not really.
water's not working right.
So they're a wastewater service provider, and basically they.
Or they're a wastewater, not water.
They don't have a plant though. It's a community leach field that they maintain. So I don't know how much, work is actually required on the day-to-day basis, other than the reporting.
Is there any potential for consolidation, somebody taking it over?
Well, it's located on the bluff, just south of Casper, so between Mendocino City CSD and City of Fort Bragg.
So people aren't even getting charged because there's no billing system. Oh boy, I'll wait to see that one.
Thank you for the update. We'll look forward to hearing more. Anything else? Okay, so AB correspondence.
We did receive a letter of resignation from Commissioner Cole. She did resign from the Hopland Cemetery District Board effective, I think, May 31st. So that also rendered her ineligible for the LAFCO board.
Thank you. And item 8C, the CALAFCO Business and Legislative Report.
We do have 2 items in the packet related to CALAFCO business. These start on page 194 of the packet. We have the announcement board vacancies, a nomination period that ends in September. The Northern Region has 2 upcoming vacancies for both a city and a public member. They've also announced the 2024 CALAFCO Achievement Award nomination period, which ends on August 31st. They have a number of categories that they are you can nominate for: Outstanding CALAFCO Volunteer, Associate Member, Commissioner, LAFCO Professional, Legislator of the Year, and a number of others. So those are, if anyone has any interest in those were emailed to the board, into the commission. So if there's any interest, please let me know, and I will help those forms. And also, finally, the 2024 CALAFCO conference will be held at the Tenaya Lodge in Yosemite, October 16th to 18th. Registration opens July 1. The hotel rooms will go quickly. This is a really popular location. So do think about whether you'd like to attend. I am on the conference planning committee this year. So if there are any subject matter or something you'd like to see included in the program, please let me know. To pass that on. And do consider attending. And at our July meeting, we'll kind of take a show of hands and see who would like to attend, and then we can get those reservations made right away.
Commissioner Gonzalez? Oh, okay. You put your pen up, so I. Okay. Was that all for CALAFCO?
That is.
Okay, perfect.
I would say that I was at the last CALAFCO at the one in Yosemite. It is a beautiful place. I'd recommend. I can't go because I've got something that date, but I would recommend.
Great, thank you. And item 8D, Executive Officers Report. Anything to add?
Just a few things. We do have that special district vacancy now. So we will be making that announcement of that vacancy, and then we will also announce the schedule for that election. Her term was up at the end of this year, so we'll try to time that so that we can just do the one election. In the meantime, we do have alternate Commissioner Francois Kristen, who will be available to be seated for her, although he will be, he's gone today, back in July. And then the alternate public vacancy is still open, so that current deadline for that is July 1. So you can help spread the word. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any committee reports? Seeing none, and any commissioner reports? Commissioner Ward.
What's the update? A few months ago, we had a presentation from an organization that got a $120,000 grant to do a study on wells and monitoring the wells. What's the update on
that? Was that the fee study presentation for the Ukiah Valley Groundwater Basin?
Yeah.
Commissioner McGordy, do you have an update?
I do. So the report is finished. We're planning public hearings, and we've had some already, but we've taken into account feedback, trying to find as equitable a method as possible to fund the organization. We would probably have an upper budget of about $600,000. This is a non-funded mandate from the state, so essentially there'll be like different tiers of payment. So pretty much anybody inside of the JPA will have to pay something, probably a pretty small minimal fee. And then the more water you use, theoretically, the more you're going to pay. The problem is we don't really have an accurate well inventory. We don't really have accurate information on water use in agriculture, which is the biggest water user. We have a pretty good idea from studies that I've done in the past, but it needs some updating. And if things go according to plan, the fee should be adopted by August of this year and on the tax bills for fiscal year. So that's what I know.
So I'm sure there was a lot of people who were upset about that.
Yes. Yeah. And including most of the people like me who are on the board, because it hasn't been easy. So our consultant has kind of started with the idea that you have this requirements for the GSAs, for groundwater sustainability agencies. There's certain studies you have to do. And our consultants are saying we have to do everything at once, which isn't true. You have like 20 years to get everything done. So they had a very high budget starting at about $1.7 million. So the fees would have been really high. And I objected very strenuously to that, saying that's ridiculous. First of all, our groundwater in Ukiah Basin is pretty much balanced. We're not in a deficit situation. It's not like San Joaquin Valley, where there's some wells where, or some areas where the ground has subsided 30 feet and water went from 150 feet down to 1,200 below the surface. So we don't really have a lot to worry about in terms of making a sustainable water source. So there's been a lot of negotiation. I think we're on a good path now.
My second item was, I believe the tax share agreement is going to go before the board when again?
The master tax sharing agreement between the cities and the county is on the Board of Supervisors agenda for June 5th, which will be Wednesday. And it's published online if there's anybody that would like to read it.
I was wondering if once it's approved, and we're hoping that it will be, that we
are.
could get a synopsis or a review of that agreement so we'd all be aware of how it works, because it's going to be a very integral part of our process here, all the applications. I'd like to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that E.O. Hinman did send the link out to the board members so you can check your email. But the agenda summary report, if you click on the report, I think it clearly articulates not only the history, but also the intention of the agreement. So, yeah, I'm happy to provide an update after
we all understand
the meeting.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands raised, so with that, we can adjourn. Thank you.